Welcome to another episode of A Minute to Midnight. Hi, I'm Chris.
And this is Tony. A minute to midnight, that means it's getting pretty late, Chris. Does that mean we can go to sleep now?
Actually, on that front, a minute to midnight, what's it actually mean?
It means I'm tired. Can we go to sleep? No, it's talking about we're that close to cataclysmic events, with midnight being the appointed time, and we're that close to it.
Yeah, I see it as like what was and what's coming.
Right.
Yeah, and it's not far away.
No, it's not. And ultimately culminating in the return of Jesus Christ.
Okay, hey, we got some news items today. What do we got there, Tony?
Okay, first up, a week or so back, John Russell Hauser, a supposed self-professed anti-feminist Christian extremist, they're calling him, killed 2 women, himself and 9 other people when he opened fire in a packed theatre in Lafayette, Louisiana. Okay, I'm not French, I'll pronounce it our Kiwi way. But Los Angeles Times proclaims Lafayette movie theatre shooter had hate in his heart for taxes, liberals, newspapers, gays and the United States, and notes his expressed interest in white power groups and neo-Nazis, in addition to his anti-Semitic and anti-gay views. House's history of domestic violence against his wife and daughter, however, have been described as acts of family violence attributed to a history of mental health issues, i.e. manic depression and bipolar disorder, according to court documents. Okay, that's from the Huffington Post. Well, I'm going to go back to they're calling him a Christian extremist. Well, I think, when you get Islamics going and shooting people, they carefully avoid even using the word Islamic. They just say they're mentally ill or they've got some other issue, but they avoid the Islamic thing. But as soon as something like this comes out, they're quick to jump on the calling them a Christian extremist bandwagon, where I'm afraid if he is interested in neo-Nazism and different things like that, there is no way that is Christianity. It's just a convenient smokescreen. But I'd also like to add that on the 20th of July 2012, a mass shooting occurred inside another theatre in Aurora, Colorado, during a midnight screening of the Dark Knight Rises film. In that case, the gunman was James Egan Holmes. Now, what I find interesting here is that there is exactly 3 years and 3 days difference between the 2 theatre shootings. Now, is that coincidence or is that 33? We know the Illuminati uses 33 to symbolise many of the events they put into action. So is this coincidence or is that 33 showing us that once again it's an issue of MK Ultra mind control programming? Both men had mental illness histories. We know that James Egan Holmes had links to the MK Ultra mind control program. Will it come out in time that this latest shooter was also influenced by the MK Ultra mind control programming? And if so, why? Well, I believe why is because under the Obama regime, they intend to disarm Americans. And this is another chance where Obama's gotten out and said his greatest frustration is that he hasn't as yet been able to take the guns off the American people. So is this just another false flag, basically a triggered event by the Illuminati to give more credence to their push to get rid of guns because guns are killing Americans? Well, I'll leave it up to you to decide if it's coincidence or is this more than a coincidence.
Interesting.
Okay, Chris.
Interesting, Tony. I've got some market news. In the last week or so, we haven't seen a lot of change. We have seen another big drop in the markets, but that's just been what's carried over from the week before. China took another big hit this week, and I think things are starting to unravel on the financial front. And it's all looking once again to, as quite a few pundits have been speaking about, a fall in the fall. And I'll just give you a bit of an oversight on the gold and silver market. The paper market is telling one story, as it always does, but the actual physical bullion market is telling quite another, Tony. The US Mint has sold over 100,000 ounces of American gold eagles so far in July, and that's the highest monthly demand volume registered since April 2013. So I believe there's a squeeze on the way there. That's just this week, by the way. So there's still a few days left in July. So it'll be interesting to see what the tally is at the end of the month. It could be one of those record books with 109,000 1-ounce gold eagles sold. So there's a lot of bargain hunters out there purchasing 6% of the US Mint's production from one of our key, one of the ones we promote, and that's the Money Metals Exchange.
Right. Where did that information come from there, Chris?
That's come out of the investment watchdog blog.com.
Right. Well, it's interesting because in early 2008, the price of gold almost reached $1,000 an ounce, but in October it had fallen to nearly $700 an ounce. Once the stock market had finally crashed, it ultimately sent gold rocketing way higher, as we know. But it's interesting that just before the economic crash had occurred in September, October 2008, or began then, that the price of gold had been plummeting and silver in the months leading up to it. That's exactly the same thing as what we're seeing now. Also, in the oil price, we've seen oil go below $50 a barrel. Now, the last time that a fall of $100 or more had occurred in the price of oil, of a 50% fall, was leading up to the 2008 crisis. So we seem to be tracking in the same direction there, Chris.
Yeah, it seems like we are. The silver market too, by the way, is been keeping up in demand as well. It's like, just as with gold, after brisk sales during the first week in July, Mint officials had suspended deliveries of silver eagles to dealers. Sales of the popular coins are set to resume next week, but we expect the Mint will be unable to get its act together and keep up with the demand. That's from investmentwatchdogblog.com as well.
Right. So what about the other commodities? What's happening there?
As you say, you've already looked at oil. Platinum and palladium have been taking a hit as well. I haven't actually had a look at the demand and supply data for that, but I suspect it's similar to gold and silver.
Well, iron ore and copper and other such things, those type of commodities are all falling as well, have been.
Yeah, it's not just the precious metals market, it's the markets per se. Sugar and wheat, coffee's another one that's had a big slump. So I mean, if you're trading that sort of thing, it's very volatile, and there's winners and losers in every market, but you got to be careful today.
I think what's happening though is we're seeing a fall in the commodities, basically same sort of cycle that led up to the global financial crisis. So I think we're tracking along for a similar thing to occur at the end of the Shemitah this year in September, leading into the Jubilee year 2016. I would think we're really on track for a great financial crash. Do you agree there, Chris?
Yeah, I still think there's something big going to happen in September, October this year. Just carrying on from where you were talking about before. If we were going to see a stock market crash in the United States this fall, then to use a hypothetical example, we would expect to see commodity prices begin to crash a few months ahead of time. And that's exactly what's happening at the moment, I feel. And it's what happened precisely just before the 2008 crisis. So we're watching exactly the same thing taking place here. But as everybody's saying out there, it's going to be a bigger hit and it's going to have a different outcome.
Yeah, okay, Chris. Now, in another issue that's been come up in the last couple of weeks, videos by Planned Parenthood's senior director, Deborah Nucatola, and also a medical director at Planned Parenthood from Pasadena, Mary Gatter, basically describing being caught out by undercover actors posing as buyers. And these abortionists are basically discussing selling baby body parts. And a third video has even come out where they're talking about the price in these videos and what they'd want them for, and want to get for the price of the baby body parts. And Gatter in one of the videos actually saying she was hoping they can bump it up because she wants a Lamborghini. Well, from there, I mean, the coverage of that has been negligible, really, compared to the coverage of the shooting of a lion by a dentist. What do you think there, Chris?
Yeah, the world's upside down, Tony, and I think, it's controversial with killing of lions. I'm not a fan of that. I'm not a fan of any animal that's protected being slaughtered in that way. But what I'm against is the fact that people are coming against this man. I've seen some editorials on it, and there's a lot of hate towards him, and even people saying he should die, etc. What's more precious? Well, a human body, or a human, or an
that's
animal?
Right. Where's the outrage over the abortionists? I mean, there's more outrage over the killing of a lion, which obviously we're not condoning, but for goodness sake, which is more important, the killing of millions of unborn babies or the shooting of a lion?
I've seen a lot too, though. They're talking about the way it's been shot. It's been shot with a bow, and it must have suffered a lot. But if you read about how the abortions, how they take place, and that is very cruel. And nothing can compare to an abortion.
Well, the amount of coverage that the media has given has been vastly more for the lion shooting than for the videos where felonies are being occurring, selling body parts, which it's illegal, and yet there's virtually no coverage of that compared to the coverage of the lion. I just think it shows you we're being distracted and the world's topsy-turvy.
Yeah, it is. It definitely is.
Okay, where are we going from there, Chris?
Yeah, I just want to share a passage of scripture that's been on my heart this past week or so. It's from 1 Corinthians chapter 7, starting in verse 29. It says, "This is what I mean, brothers. The appointed time has grown very short. From now on, let those who have wives live as though they had none, and those who mourn as though they were not mourning, and those who rejoice as though they were not rejoicing, and those who buy as though they had no goods, and those who deal with the world as though they had no dealings with it. For the present form of this world is passing away." So we're living in a time that is short. We're living in a time where we need to just put our faith and trust in God, not in man, not in anything around us. That's what I get out of that scripture. And just to move on from there, I just got something that I'd like to share with you all, and that's regarding the here in New Zealand, we have not a new currency, but we've got a new form of notes coming. As of October, the Reserve Bank of New Zealand is releasing a new set of notes. They've got a new design to them, so our old notes will still be in circulation, but we've yet to see for how long. And we will be replacing our $5 and $10 notes with newly designed notes, and they do look very, very nice. I quite like the look of them. I think they look really good, but like anything, on the surface it looks good, but what's underneath? And that's what concerns me. New Zealand's currency was last redesigned only 15 years ago. I think the American dollar has never had a design change, as far as I know, since its inception. In 1971, I think that was when the Illuminati insignia was put on the dollar bill. Is that right, Tony? Would I be right on that?
Well, I think the Eye of Horus, that's the eye in the pyramid, which is well known as the Illuminati symbol, first appeared on the dollar in 1797. Doc Markey of It's a God Thing Productions 777.com is the real expert on that subject, but perhaps we could cover it a bit more in depth in another show because there's a lot to this supposed seal of the United States. So, Chris, you were going to tell us a bit more about the upcoming changes to the New Zealand dollars.
Coming back to our what they call an old currency, it's only 15 years old. We have polymer notes, which are like a plastic. It's got a little clear window on it. And the first thing I asked myself when I saw that they were introducing these new notes was, why would they do that? And first and foremost, the only reason why you'd want to change your currency is for counterfeiting's sake. Now, these notes have not been counterfeited as far as I know, so why would the Reserve Bank be interested in changing them? So I've looked up on their website, and you can go and look at it, rbnz.co.nz, and have a look at the new notes, and I'm pretty sure you will be, as I was, very impressed with the new design. They look very bright, very, very sparkly, and they do send you to another site which they've got set up just for the notes and for any questions and answers that people might have, and they're going to keep everybody up to date on this website, but that's at brightermoney.co.nz, so you can go there and have a good look at it. Now, anyway, I've done some research, and I just want to briefly talk about that now, and I think October 2015 is significant as far as finance goes for the world, not just for New Zealand's sake, but I find it coincidental, if you like, the fact that we've got these new notes coming in, which coincides with the fall of the Northern Hemisphere, which a lot of pundits, as we've already said, are looking to a fall in the financial realm. So could this be coincidental? I don't know, but here we go. These notes, I did some research, and for the sake of counterfeiting, I looked it up, and they said it's not so much for counterfeiting, but it is in the realm of for safety and security. So what does that mean for our dollar notes, for our 5, 10, 20, 50 and $100 denominated notes? What it means is that firstly, they're just going to introduce the $5 and the $10 notes in October, and then in April of 2016, they're looking at bringing out the 20s, the 50s, and the 100s. Now, I'm going to be purely speculative in what I'm saying here. The fact that our current notes are manufactured or produced, I should say, in Australia, and now they're going to be printed in Canada, and it's called the Canadian Banknote Company minting these notes, and this particular company has the ability to use great technology, and the technology that I believe they're going to be using in these notes is the same technology that is being used in credit cards and some e-passports, and it's radio frequency technology. It's termed RFIDs. Now, what RFIDs do is it's a radio frequency that connects with the same or similar technology that comes from a cell tower. So what I believe could be underway here, and once again, folks, I'm being speculative here, so I leave it up to you to work it out for yourself, if you like, to make your own decision on this, and that is, I believe, or I think we could be being set up to have a total microchipped currency. Now, that would go hand in hand with the already virtual currency that we live under. So if you're already doing your internet banking and stuff, you're tracked with every transaction that you do. Now, currently with our notes, that's untrackable. There's probably two reasons I can see for setting up such a tracking mechanism for our notes. One is to keep those that are tax evasive in the system and where government can track, so their taxable incomes can be taken from them. At the moment, that is not traceable. The other reason being would probably be to undergird any underworld activities, gangs, prostitution, etc.
Well, I can see another thing here, that if they do use microchips in the notes, I remember seeing something a while ago about the ability to blow up and burn some American notes in a microwave because they had microchips in them. And so they would basically burn on the same part of every note. I'm wondering whether it could be an interim step if they have the RFID chips in the notes. Whilst they still have cash, they could be tracking it that way. And then when it comes to time to do away with cash completely, they could incinerate the notes by sending a frequency from the cell towers that will basically cause any of those notes to become inoperable.
You're on the right track there, Tony. It's exactly what I think's happening. And it's all to do with the coming cashless society that we're going to be living under, which is talked about in the book of Revelation, where unless you have a mark on the forehead or on the forearm, you will not be
on
able
the
to...
hand,
On the hand. Yeah. You will not be able to trade. So yes, you're right. So this could be a precursor to that. So we're going to see a new currency issued. The other reason too that could be behind it, Tony, is we could see an inflationary environment starting to flare up around October. And that would mean that we may possibly have to trade multiple notes for one note.
Yep, that's always a possibility. Yeah, definitely. Yep.
So that's another scenario. That's what could be happening. That could be why we are changing the design of our notes. It could be the fact that we might be seeing prices rise rather quickly because of an event that is possibly going to coincide with the note's arrival.
That could make sense if they were bringing in a new note and we were hitting hyperinflation or severe inflation anyway, where they could say your old notes will become unserviceable at such and such a date and surrender them in, but instead of giving you a one-to-one note, they could give you basically only say one new note for 2 or 3 or whatever it is of the old ones. I mean, that is speculation, but I could see that as definitely a possibility.
So yeah, I think we need to be vigilant at this time. Once again, that's what we're all about here. We're here to tell you folks to be ready for what's coming. And once again, we need to reiterate the fact that you need to buy some precious metals. You need to be ready with food and shelter. But in order, firstly, you need your spiritual life in order. You need your food and your shelter sorted. You need to be out of debt as much as you can. And you need some precious metals to see you through the tough times ahead.
Talking about microchipping, I remember watching a video where Aaron Russo gave out the dirt on the Rockefellers and how they want to microchip everyone and basically turn off microchips of those that don't submit to the New World Order, in essence. I find it interesting, David Rockefeller in his memoirs had said the supernatural sovereignty of an intellectual elite and world bankers is surely preferable to the national auto-determination practiced in past centuries. I mean, that's straight from David Rockefeller. Back in the 70s, Larry P. McDonald, US Congressman, 1976, said the drive of the Rockefellers and their allies is to create a one-world government combining supercapitalism and communism under the same tent, all under their control. Do I mean conspiracy? Yes, I do. I'm convinced that there is such a plot, international in scope, generations old in planning, and incredibly evil in intent. So I think all of these things are moving in that direction. One world government, we'll have TPP, we'll have a global financial crash, we'll have all these things leading to the control ultimately by the New World Order, of which the Rockefellers are a big part. And microchipping, RFIDs, definitely will play a role in that, I believe.
And I think too, coming back to the new currency, the fact that we may well see an amnesty. And what I mean by that is that when all this takes place, the old notes are going to flush out the new notes. They're going to want to have the old notes flushed out because that's the whole reasoning behind this new system. They want to get rid of the old. They want to know how much and who's got what. And there's a lot of people putting their money under mattresses because they don't trust the banking system. And so by flushing it out, they'll probably put a 3 or 6 month amnesty in. And after that time, your current notes will be worthless. And you would have already traded them for new notes.
Right. And so this could happen in other countries too, not just New Zealand.
It'll be interesting to know from any listeners if there is any such thing happening in their particular country or place of currency.
Well, we know that there's a drive towards a cashless society. That we surely do know. And it reminds me of James Warburg, Council of Foreign Relations in 1950. He said, "We shall have world government, whether or not you like it, by conquest or consent." And quite frankly, I think the whole left-right thing is a farce, a distraction. Communism and fascism are both socialist agendas. They both seek totalitarian rule ultimately. Under both of them you have a leadership that is above the rest of mankind. Under both communism and fascism, the elite at the top control the money and the decision-making. The rank and file have no say. Give the corporations power and it won't matter if you call it left communism or right Nazism, because the end is an elite at the top and they control the finances and the laws. As long as people are believing their votes make a difference and are herded left or right, they will be distracted from the real issue, and that is the control by the globalist elites. Ultimately, a new world order, a mix of communism and super capitalism. TPP, doing away with cash, microchipping, it's all part and parcel of their drive towards this new world order. And those of us mostly in the world are living in a normalcy bias. We just think things are just going to carry on as they are now, and we can't believe that it's going to change, that we could be heading for a great financial crisis, a great crash, and a new world order coming out of it. But it is coming. Absolutely, it is coming. But I suppose there's some comfort. It says in James chapter 5, "Go now, ye rich men, weep and howl for your miseries that shall come upon you. Your riches are corrupted and your garments are moth-eaten." And it carries on a bit further down in verse 4, "Behold, the hire of the labourers who have reaped down your fields, which you have kept back by fraud, cries out. And the cries of them which have reaped are entered into the ears of the Lord." So the Rockefellers and these global elites are not going to escape unpunished. Ultimately, they will be answerable to God. Meanwhile, we've got to survive. We've got to see our way through this time ahead. And both Chris and I believe that precious metals is definitely one of the things that is going to survive through this, and that's something that we believe you need to be in possession of. Is that right, Chris?
That's right, and of course we've got our other things that we need to have in place, and firstly that's have our spiritual life in order, and secondly have our shelter and our food sorted, and then thirdly have those precious metals in place. And so that's it. We're going to wrap up for this week's episode, and it's been great talking to you. So it's goodbye from me, Chris.
And from Tony, and we will catch you next week.